Welcome to Dynasty Instructors Training. Clayton McKinney here, and today we are going to go further into instructional organization on our lesson plan development course. Okay, and as we said, we're going to continue to our instructional organization, organizing the body of the lesson plan, and we're going to focus on developing the actual strategy statement. Okay, now let's just take a look at the method of presentation. The strategy statement should move the reader through the lesson simultaneously from the general to the specific element, as well as sequentially from the attention step through the closure. No part of the lesson plan and no decision about teaching techniques, that is, the use of demonstrations, use of questions, where to insert mini lectures, etc., etc., should be overlooked or assumed in the statement. Spelling out each element about which we sometimes make subconscious decisions in the lesson formulation often reveals conventions that we sometimes misuse or overuse in the practice of education. Again, a benefit to the writer and any other teacher of the lesson. Okay, now we suggest that you start by looking at your lesson objectives and organizational pattern to decide on an overall strategic ordering of the main points. State this ordering up front, i.e., that is general to specific, specific to general, most to least important, known to unknown, simple to complex. Now this decision will give you a general focus to lead you toward the objective efficiently. All right, as we continue with the strategy statement, now follow this with a sequential statement of each main point and its associated subpoints to include method of presentation and rationales for the method and order of presentation. Now each of these steps is so important to help the lesson planner fit the element together and to consider all the factors necessary for justifying each decision. In effect, this method can be simplified by meticulously asking and answering the 3 questions that are indispensable for comprehensive lesson development. And those questions are what, how, and why. So important. And we're trying to get it across that developing this actual strategy statement is essential, because it's just like developing any kind of strategic document. It shows you where you're trying to go before you start trying to get there. So it's important that it's almost like a plan for the plan, if you will. And it's very, very important when it comes to lesson planning. Okay, now we're going to take an actual look at interrelating these questions. Whenever there is a significant lesson element, it constitutes an answer to the what question that must be answered in the strategy statement. Now, a significant lesson element is every main point or subpoint that the instructor includes in the lesson, and each must be denoted in the strategy statement. Now, often segments of the lesson, that is, the introduction, attention step, interim summary, or conclusion, represent significant elements that should or must also be mentioned in the strategy statement. The significant lesson elements tell the teacher and sometimes the student what will be covered or where there is an important or required tactical decision being made. But this is just the beginning of the process, because if we were to stop with these determinations of what we intend to do and where we intend to do it, we would be left with simply a laundry list of elements to be touched on during the lesson. Of much more significance to the lesson planner are the answers to the how and why questions. Asking and answering how to each of these what forces us to determine and delineate the method, manner, or sequence of presenting the significant elements that will be included. It is important, so important, to make these determinations because we have a palette full of teaching techniques and patterns and methodologies from which to choose. And it is often helpful to specify these decisions to encourage precision in our lesson formulation. For example, very often we state that we will discuss a particular topic when we have absolutely no intention of discussing it at all, as evidenced by our failure to plan discussion questions in that part of the plan. Answering the how question will help us to focus our intentions and prevent us from making the mistake of saying we will discuss something without providing discussion questions within the lesson plan. Alternatively, we might want to demonstrate or even have a student demonstrate something within the lesson, or we might want to show a movie or slides to illustrate a lesson element most effectively. But if we state in the strategy that we will explain a given concept in this part of the lesson, this disconnect will, with what we actually plan the lesson, will be more and more evident. But one cannot determine the final answer to how without giving full consideration to why the decision is made. Therefore, the answer to why must be fully integrated into the strategy statement. This answer provides the intellectual glue that binds the part of the strategy statements into a cohesive whole. It justifies each decision the planner makes and fits the elements of this puzzle together. It helps to prevent our adding the dazzle and flash that add no educational value to the lesson. Everything must have a sound reason for its inclusion, or it should be left out of the lesson. The why should ask why the main points and subpoints are in the order we choose, as well as force us to provide a reason for our choice of techniques, patterns, methods, and the inclusion of every other what in the lesson. Let's talk about the significance of the questions. Now, why is it so important to be this specific in writing the strategy? The answer is self-evident, since all techniques and methods, or combinations of these, are potentially appropriate in a lesson until the lesson planner decides which is most effective. If the writer does not make this decision or doesn't realize what is best to do in a given scenario, the lesson will never be as effective as it could be. In almost any human endeavor, the effectiveness of interpersonal communications is inversely proportional to how much one allows to be left unstated or understood. Even the order of combining the ingredients, how, at each stage of the cooking process is often important to get the desired results. Needless to say, adding salt too early in a meat recipe could reduce the succulence of the dish. But without working understanding of what each of the ingredients does in a recipe, why, we would be unable to easily and successfully modify the recipe for the microwave in lieu of the oven, or to substitute elements such as mayonnaise for oil and eggs in a cake recipe. Therefore, it is imperative to ask and answer these three questions in a well-developed strategy statement. And it's equally important to interweave the answers through the strategy. This careful choice and justification of all lesson plan elements will result in better preparation. The following are examples of strategies that demonstrate the principles outlined above. Two things should be noticed about these examples. First, the what, how, and why statements are interwoven throughout the statements. This intertwining of elements help to ensure that everything in the plan has a justifiable purpose. Second, some of these statements serve double duty. That is, some what statements are also how or why statements. This is perfectly legitimate, and any type of statement can serve more than one purpose. This phenomenon may even help to strengthen the cohesion of the overall strategy. Okay, so this first example we will have, example 1, is really an example on a presentation on time management. It answers all three of the questions interweaved within this strategy statement. It's for an informal lecture. It's the type of lesson we're going to be having, and its pattern is topical. So let's take a look at this strategy statement. This lesson will begin with a definition of personal effectiveness to ensure that students start from a common reference point. Once the definition is covered, I will discuss the three elements of time management model: setting priorities, daily planning, and delegation, along with their relationship to personal effectiveness. Beginning with priority system, I will establish the principles that using a priority system improves personal effectiveness through lecture, questions, and answers. Since establishing priorities is the first step one takes in a time management system, it is logical that I begin here. Once priorities are established, planning can begin. With the relationship between priorities and personal effectiveness established, I will next examine how planning daily activities improve personal effectiveness. Finally, I will discuss how delegation improves personal effectiveness. Delegation is the last step in my time management model, and therefore will be reviewed last during today's presentation. I will summarize the three main points in a comprehensive level summary, combining my teaching points with the student inputs from the classroom questions to aid in reaching the generalization that time management techniques improve personal effectiveness. Okay, our example number 2, will be a demonstration of the present value of money. This is a demonstration performance type of plan, and it has a pattern of sequential steps. Okay, so let's go into the lesson, the actual plan, or the strategy itself, strategy statement. The lesson on determining cash value will be taught in sequential order to show how each step of the calculation builds on the next. The lesson will start with a brief explanation of present value and cash flows. The explanation will help students understand the benefits of using this method in determining the time value of their money. Next, a demonstration and explanation of each task step of the process of calculating the present value of an unequal stream of payments to show each student how to extract necessary data from a scenario and obtain the present value of each amount. The demonstration and explanation step will also teach students how to use the present value table. The instructor will then have the student perform the calculations themselves while he reads the task steps to give the students practice under controlled conditions. Once the students have completed the task steps, they will practice once more on their own, with the last practice occurring under controlled conditions duplicating the final evaluation so that the instructor can be sure each student is ready. The demonstration and explanation of problem, the controlled practice problem, and the independently done practice problem should provide enough repetition of the required sequence of steps while providing adequate time for questions to ensure students are learning the procedure. The instructor will then have the students perform the computations without assistance, and then he will grade the results to ensure the students have performed to the required standards. Now for our third and final example of a strategy statement. This one will be on the Security Assistant Training Program, or SATP. It will be a teacher interview type, and the pattern will be topical. So now let's take a look at this strategy statement. The interview will start with lead-off and follow-up questions about the general role and purpose of the Security Assistant Training Program, or SATP, to show the main points that the SATP promotes national security. Then a series of lead-off and follow-up questions addressing the particular role of the International Officer School, IOS, plays in the training process will demonstrate the other main point, vis-a-vis that IOS, also as a player in the SATP, promotes national security. Students will learn what the SATP is from the point of view of its initial purpose, as well as how it operates today. This will be done by the use of a practicing expert within the SATP. The interviewing of the expert is chosen for two reasons. One, to effectively present the concept of the SATP in an understandable and interesting format with the use of personal experience and real-life examples. And two, to foster an effective purpose on the part of the student by testimony of one who believes in the goals of the SATP. A topical pattern will be used to explain the goals and importance of the SATP, as well as the goals and importance of IOS as it contributes to reaching that goal through the use of Air Force training resources. The interview will proceed from a general explanation and understanding of the role of IOS. The strategy should be more effective. This strategy should be more effective in fostering a deeper, comprehension of the importance of the program, as well as pointing out the personal relevancy of the program to the ordinary Air Force civilian or military member, all of whom are likely to encounter an international military student during their careers. After the formal interview of the guest by the instructor, a question and answer period will be directed by the instructor to further illuminate the topic.